Tonight, Nearstar confirms 120 job cuts at Port Pirie smelter, and a local Chinese restaurant goes up in flames.
This is Southern Cross News with Abby Donaldson.
Good evening. 120 jobs from Port Pirie's lead smelter are set to be cut. Nearstar has assured employees that it's all part of the plant's transition to the new smelter. However, it comes as concerns grow about the Belgian company's finances.
120 Nearstar employees are set to be out of a job.
Well, look, I think from the viewpoint of the families and the workers in Port Pirie, it'd be very concerning to see the numbers that have now been identified.
Nearstar has assured its staff that the redundancies are all part of a scheduled downsizing, following the closure of the old sinter plant. But the figures appear to be higher than previously thought.
Been watching the situation for a little while. We understand from feedback we get from the daily pay guys at Nearstar that this has been on the cards for a couple of months. The extra 20, of course, is a little bit of a shock.
Nearstar issued the following statement. Port Pirie has begun the process of communicating to its employees and stakeholders its intent to gradually reduce the number of employee positions and contractors throughout 2019. As the transformation of the smelter includes the shutting down of obsolete and outdated equipment, we will reduce positions at Port Pirie by approximately 120 employees and contractors in 2019. Talks will be held on Wednesday between the company and the Australian Workers' Union, who recently voiced concerns that the substantial drop in workers jeopardise safety practices on site, while State MP Jeff Brock has called for people to avoid scare tactics.
All this negativity and bad wording will affect the well-being of our community, our workers down there.
Dominic Beaton, Southern Cross News.
Police are investigating whether a fire at a home at Jenkins Avenue in Whyalla was suspicious. It was one of 2 house fires in the city overnight, which left a combined 6-figure damage bill. John Hunt has more details.
Behind me lies a house totally destroyed, with fire gutting this Whyalla property overnight. Police and the MFS are now investigating whether this fire was an act of arson. Police and fire crews were called to the address just after 2 this morning. 13 firefighters took 40 minutes to extinguish the blaze, which completely destroyed the house. Luckily, nobody was in sight at the time. Fire investigators were at the property this afternoon figuring out why this house set alight. Police will also investigate, with some aspects pointing to a potential deliberately lit blaze.
Certainly, some of the physical evidence at the scene would suggest that it is a potential arson matter.
It wasn't the only incident for the MFS. They'd earlier been called to a McDowell Stewart house after 9 last night, after reports of a fire in the roof. 16 firefighters took 20 minutes to control the blaze. While fire investigators are yet to survey, Inspector Hubbard says the fire isn't being treated as suspicious.
The earlier fire is believed to have been the result of an electrical fault.
The combined damage bill is estimated at $400,000, $300,000 here at Jenkins Avenue, and between $80 and $100 at the McDowell Stewart property.
Meantime, a fire at the Port Pirie Chinese restaurant saw the owner rush to hospital with burns to his hands. Neighbouring shop owners contacted emergency services after they witnessed a ball of fire exploding from the roof.
The Port Pirie Chinese restaurant engulfed in flames. The local MFS arrived at the scene after neighbouring shop owners noticed smoke billowing down the main street and a fireball erupting out of the exhaust pipe on the roof.
That the fire may have started due to fire with fat out of cooking equipment.
Francis, the shop's tenant, was heard calling for help and was lucky to make it out of the building in time. He was rushed to the Port Pirie hospital with burns to his hands. Staff at the neighbouring car yard bravely intervened, trying to contain flames before the MFS arrived.
Sort of boof, blew up, and we just quickly grabbed the hose, went over there, and I climbed up on a bin and then just pointed the hose at the fire.
Emergency services were quick to respond, only arriving minutes after the fire took light. It's believed that asbestos might have been in the building, so the area has been petitioned off. An owner of a neighbouring massage parlour was relieved to see the fire put out before it spread next door.
Yeah, fortunately the people from Spencer Motors came here and they had a fairly decent hose to keep things a little bit dampened down here.
Dominic Beaton, Southern Cross News.
New leaked reports show an oil spill in the Great Australian Bight could reach as far as the beaches in Sydney. However, oil company Equinor says their draft plan shows models of an unrealistic worst-case scenario.
The blowout of an oil well in the Great Australian Bight means the spill could reach as far as the New South Wales coast. It's according to a leaked draft environment plan from Norwegian oil company Equinor, which has been obtained by environmental group Greenpeace.
It would travel thousands of kilometres to the east and in certain weather conditions to the west. It would transit past Tasmania and up past Sydney.
Equinor plans to drill an oil well more than 300 kilometres off the coastline at more than 2,000 metres deep. The leaked document shows maps of oil spill simulations, but Equinor want to highlight the simulation is based on no responsive action being taken.
We put 100 simulations on top of each other into one single map. This is why it's not possible and not realistic and not a realistic scenario.
Equinor expects to complete its full environmental plan ready to publish early next year for public consultation before submitting to the regulator NOPSEMA for approval.
And we expect this to be finalised mid-year next year, and then it will be decided if we will drill the well in 2019 or 2020.
Casey Trelaw, Southern Cross News.
Still to come tonight, a major funding boost for the Upper Spencer Gulf's anticipated Uni Hub. Welcome back. The state's sardine industry is now certified as one of the world's most sustainable fisheries. It's now the largest single-species fishery in Australia to gain the Marine Stewardship Council's certification.
The lesser-known fishery based in Port Lincoln, now proven as a global leader in ecological sustainability.
We're one of very few fisheries in Australia that have MSC certification, so we're very proud to have done as well as we have, and now I suppose we can take our spot on the global stage as leaders in sustainability.
It was announced earlier this year the industry was undergoing the Marine Stewardship Council assessment. However, the accreditation wasn't expected to come so soon. But for Marcus, it was a goal to achieve before the new quota becomes available for the fishermen next year.
We've finally gotten there. It's been a long process throughout the year, but it's a fantastic outcome for industry.
And the certification will also extend to benefiting other local fisheries.
Generally, about 94% of our catch is currently feeding the aquaculture leases in and around Port Lincoln, so mostly value adding into the tuna industry.
But it's also a chance to highlight the quality for human consumption.
To really enter that premium market of human consumption and to reposition ourselves in that way, which might be a little bit more appealing to the public.
Casey Trelaw, Southern Cross News.
Management of the Aboriginal Drug and Alcohol Council say a $400,000 cut to their funding by the federal government will put a strain on the rehabilitation centre in Port Augusta. They insist the government has still given them no reason for the decision.
It's the centre which supports 20,000 clients wrestling with drug and alcohol addictions, but the main centre facilitating the program claims they've had $400,000 of funds cut.
It was a bit of a shock after 25 years of serving the community.
Around $1.5 million of financial support for the two day centres in Port Augusta and Ceduna has been extended for the next 2 years by the federal government, although funding for the headquarters of the Aboriginal Drug and Alcohol Council will cease on December 31st. It means some funds will have to be transferred from key addiction services to cover increased admin costs.
If you've got less money to provide services, direct services, then the biggest loser obviously in this situation will be clients.
ADAC says they were informed about the decision earlier this year, and despite multiple attempts to contact the federal government, are still yet to understand why the money was ripped from their budget. Yet the government claims they met with the organisation only last month and that funding negotiations are still ongoing.
I should imagine that will be resolved in due course, obviously before not too much longer.
Garth Burley, Southern Cross News.
Ironically, windy conditions have proved to be a hindrance in the construction of the Silverton wind farm. While some delays have been experienced when erecting the turbines, AGL's project manager says it's nothing major.
Getting to the business end. Got 57 turbines that are basically complete. Out of those 57, we've got 5 that need to have blades, but really coming into the end of construction and then into the commissioning phase of the project. 13 of the wind farm turbines are currently generating electricity, with more to come online toward the end of the year. But it's not as simple as connecting all the cables and flipping a switch. Integrating that wind farm into the grid is really critical and key, and we need to make sure we do that safely. We need to make sure we do that to main system security. The recent windy conditions have caused some setbacks for crane crews, but Mr Mackett says they're working to get back on track. I definitely think we'll have cranes on the ridge until the end of the year, potentially into early next year, but they'll start to be gone. All of our deliveries are complete. When the wind farm is complete, it will be the second largest in New South Wales and 6th in Australia. It will generate 780 gigawatt hours annually. That's enough to power 136,000 average Australian homes. Patrick Ryanke, Southern Cross News.
Food, art and song with a focus at Whyala's Air High School last night, all my favourite things. The school opened its doors to the public for its annual Feast of the Senses event. Cookery students served up a treat while budding musicians put on a show for the crowd. The art classes' works were also on display, with many of the pieces taking over 30 hours to create. Deputy Principal Christy Patterson says the night was a celebration of their students' talents.
Parents seeing their students of what they've achieved, you know, the students are really proud of their achievements and they've surprised themselves of what they're capable of doing.
The event was also one of their final assessments ahead of the summer holidays. The Upper Spencer Gulf's anticipated uni hub has been propped up by an extra $1.9 million from the federal government. The boost will ease the start-up costs of the facility, which is due to open in Port Pirie early next year.
With the Upper Spencer Gulf Uni Hub due to open its doors to students in Port Pirie next year and Port Augusta in 2020, an extra boost of federal funding will help kickstart the education centre.
We're providing through that $1.9 million for over 4 years.
The funding comes off the back of $1.1 million announced earlier in the year and is part of a wider $24 million federal plan to establish 16 regional study hubs across Australia. It will help ease the start-up costs of the 2 Upper Spencer Gulf sites.
It's about making sure that we've got enough skills to develop rural regional Australia to its potential in the long term.
3 universities from South Australia and Queensland have partnered to deliver courses at the Uni Hub, which has had an influx of interest from hundreds of prospective students across the region.
So it's really important that we get those enrolments. It's a real opportunity to get a real qualification and to do it without leaving home.
Garth Burley, Southern Cross News.
Stay with us after the break. We'll have fish and tips, and in the weather it's going to be an absolutely stunning weekend, but temperatures are set to soar again come Monday. I'll have all the local weather details soon. Time now to see what's biting around the Gulf.
Welcome another week around the Gulf Fishing Tips. I tell you what, I absolutely love this time of the year to go fishing. What we've got at the moment is our yellowfin whiting, as we're reporting for the last 2 weeks. They're starting to get big in numbers, so make sure you're out there. And some of the guys have been asking me what's the best bait for them. There is a small prawn that you can buy from the supermarkets that does work super well, and have a go at those. I think you'll do really well. Our blue swimmer crabs, we've had reports coming in where people got a dozen or 2 dozen. They're full of meat at the time, so it's really good for that first taste of crab. And during the December period they'll go a bit soft, so make sure you get out and amongst them. While you're fishing at the moment, we've been talking about flathead, but everywhere that you're fishing in the shallows for yellowfin whiting, if there's a gutter close by, have a go for flathead.
G'day and welcome to this week's Fishing Tips from Port Augusta, Jewel North. Well, November is certainly here with a bit of force at the moment. Tip is get up early, go out and get yourself a nice feed of crabs out in the deep. Long leady spit at number 9 seem to be the best catches there as well. Still take a little bit to get in the nets, but once they're on you're getting quite good feeds. Silver whiting on the low tides over in the middle banks around Flinders Channel and the sandbanks over on that side there. Kingfish is still around. at the moment. Early morning seems to be best for them up around the top of the Gulf. That's all we have from the Jewel North.
A few garfish are still starting to run down along the one still wall, so get amongst those guys. Also in the same area, there's been a few King George whiting just off of the walls. If you work the little white sand holes throughout that area, I'm sure you'll pick up a feed. A little bit further south, only just a few squid coming in from the Mount Young grounds. A little bit warmer weather has pushed the squid out, but it's also bringing the blue swimmer crabs in, so now's the time to start working for those. Hot tip is to fish the deeper water. A little bit further north around to Point Lowly, there's been a few yellowtail kingfish spotted around the lighthouse. No major hookups, but there is a few fish floating around, so it could be worth a try.
G'day and welcome to Fishing Tips in Port Lincoln. Well, within the bay there's been some nice whiting caught over the past week, even with the slower tides. There was some whiting down in the proper, especially along the National Park side of the bay. There are also a few tommies within the bay system, and there are some garfish kicking around as well. Also within the bay in Port Lincoln, there were some nice blue crabs caught by a few people chasing whiting on their fishing lines. The first reports of tuna came in over the weekend. Some fish were apparently caught out around the cabbage patch, so that's a good sign that they should get better in numbers as we move on into November and December. Well, that's all for this week. We'll see you again with more fishing tips next week.
Now let's check out what's happening in the weather. It was an absolutely cracking day around the Gulf today. Port Augusta and Broken Hill, sunny and 28 the max. Taking a look at the satellite, and cloud bubbling up in the northeast near the Flinders Ranges is causing some isolated dry thunderstorms. Low cloud over southern SA is bringing isolated showers, and skies are mostly clear elsewhere under a ridge of high pressure. On the waters for your Friday, southerly shifting southwesterly winds up to 25 knots, seas at 2 metres, and sunrise will be at 6:08. And look at that, nothing but sunshine to end the week as it warms up too. Port Augusta heading for a top of 30 degrees, Port Pirie 29 the max, and cooler in Port Lincoln 22 the max. These lovely conditions will hang around for the weekend as temperatures soar back up into the 30s by Sunday. We could see the odd shower to start the week for all centres too. Port Lincoln 29 the max on Sunday and 30 the top for Monday with the odd drizzle. Cleve 33 the top for Sunday and Monday, and warmer in Woodner. Nothing but sunshine over the coming days. Whyalla 27 on Saturday, 33 on Sunday. Getting hot again in Port Augusta, cloudy and 39 the top by Monday, a scorcher there. And Kadina 33 for Sunday and Monday, where some districts could also see the odd shower. Lastly, stunning conditions for the weekend. Port Pirie warming up to 35 by Sunday, Clare 31, Broken Hill 31 as well, and cloud cover creeping in for Clare to start the week. Port Pirie a sizzling 37 the top with the odd sprinkle forecast as well. And that's all the local news this Thursday. Thanks for your company. I'm Abby Donaldson. We hope to see you tomorrow. Good night.